Welcome. I am Aria Curzon, and I am sitting down today with one of my dearest, longest friends in the industry, Rob Paulsen, or Robert Frederick Paulsen the
The
Third,
third,
as
yes.
I discovered today. That is news to me. I'm going to read a little bit about Rob. I mean, I know Rob, and you probably know Rob, but I want to be official about this. So, with over 2,000 half hour programs and dozens of films, video games, and other animated media to his credit, Rob Paulsen has been one of the hardest working, most in demand, and most beloved voice artists in the industry. Some of his most beloved characters include Yakko Warner, Otto Scratch and Sniff, and Pinky from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. He was also Raphael in the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series and later returned to the franchise as Donatello in the 2012 animated TV series, which apparently he also is directing. His role as Pinky won him a Daytime Emmy Award for male vocal performance. And according to what I have here, Rob has been the voice of over 250 animated characters and performed in over 1,000 commercials. Wow.
What? Wow, somebody owes me some money.
I believe that. But of course, to me, I've known him the longest as my Spike, my brother and best friend in the Land Before Time series. So, welcome. Welcome, Rob. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, hello, Aria. Oh, that felt really good to say. Hi, sweetie. Oh my God, folks, those of you who are lucky enough to be watching this, you already have tuned in, um, because you love, as I do, Aria. She is just exactly who she appears to be in front of you. Talented, obviously beautiful, um, very sweet. And I have known you literally since you were a little girl. I think, when did you do the first Land Before Time movie?
I was 8 years old, so it must have been about 95.
God, you were 8.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Wow. Well, I am almost 27. No. So I met you, yeah, when you were a little girl. And my goodness, having done, I don't know, I think, how many Land Before Times did you do? Like 10 or
I did
11?
10 of them. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the series.
So I think I did too. And oh my goodness, to be able to watch your star rise and see how much work you did. I got to know your sweet mother. That is one of the really wonderful gifts of this business, isn't it? That we get a chance to work with each other, we get paid, and then we make these friendships that last for decades. And now here you are, you sweet thing, and you call me and say, "Oh my God, you want to do this?" I couldn't say yes fast enough. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Wow. Everything you said just now, first of all, I got emotional. That's why I started laughing. I was like, that's so sweet. But everything you said about the industry is true. We meet the nicest people, and it's just like a big family. It used to be a really small world, although it's seemed to be getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
And I was just in awe of you and a lot of the adults that I got to work with because of how expressive and multi-talented you were. I didn't even know. I just, I had a cute voice and I could read and I was articulate, but
You're a good actor.
well, thank you. That is a big part of it. But I was just always in such admiration of you and what you did, and not to
Oh,
mention what a great person you are. My mom actually told me a interesting story just like moments before we
oh
started
my
this
gosh.
that when I was just starting out in the industry, she read an article about you and Frank Welker.
Oh,
And she said to me, wow, maybe you'll work with them one day. And next thing I know, my very first few jobs, I worked with Frank in Cave Kids at Hanna-Barbera. And,
uh-huh.
and then I worked with you very shortly after for many, many years. So,
Yes. Well, and we are the better for it. I have had the great good fortune of knowing Frank, gosh, for I don't know, 35 years. And um, he found our house for us in Agora Hills. We live about 10 minutes from Frank. Um, I just adore, well, what's not to love, right? He's just the greatest guy, crazy talented.
mhm,
And he's like your big brother or your grandpa. He's just a great, sweet guy. Um,
yeah.
and that is not unusual for everybody. In fact, with respect to Land Before Time, goodness gracious, we had Kenny Mars, who was just the most delightful, lovely, funny. God, I was a fan of Kenny's, and I was just so thrilled to become his friend because I was a big fan of his growing up back in Michigan, watching all the movies he did, and then getting to know him was total gift. We had Linda Gary for a while. We had Jeff Bennett was on it with me a
And
couple of times.
Preston
Um,
Steele, uh,
yes.
John.
Oh yeah. John. Oh God, from the soap opera. He was on
Yes,
General Hospital. John Engel.
John Ingle. Yeah.
Oh God, what a sweet, kind gentleman. He's sadly gone now as well. Um, Miriam Flynn. Oh my God, we had so many wonderful actors, and to watch you grow up. Oh my gosh, what a blast!
Absolutely. What a life we've gotten to live.
What a life! Amen.
I couldn't be more thankful. I mean, I hear, they like to push those stories of the kid actors who get off track and hate their lives. But I never felt that way. I
You
was,
never did. And you also, I got to say, a lot of that I think has to do with your mom. I have worked with a lot of kids, and I've gotten to know a lot of them. Most of them have turned out just great. You, Seth Green, um, others with Sean Astin, people I've worked with and become very good friends with, who started out when they were quite young.
mhm,
And not everybody ends up in trouble or confused or scared or like Corey Feldman or Corey Haim. They don't all end up like that.
yeah.
And you talk to Seth and he talks about his mom. And I know your mom. And I don't think you could have ended up any other way than you did because your mom is a hands on, sweet, smart, good parent, irrespective of the fact that you're in show business,
Mhm.
you know? So I think that it speaks very highly of not only your mother and her influence on you, but your mutual respect because parenting, I'm one too. It, there's no handbook and just, it's a combination of luck, hard work, and the fact that you are willing to listen to what your mom said. And there you go. It worked.
Wow, she is gonna love that, and she's gonna love you even more for everything
It's
that you just
true.
said. And I do credit her and both my parents a lot for protecting me,
Sure.
always making sure that the scenario, whatever I was involved in, that I'd be handled with care and that nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, a lot of your peers, people your age. Um, it's it's pretty heady stuff. If I had uh, been able to make the kind of money I ended up making, which is a great living, I'm not, a zillionaire,
Mhm.
but we make a really nice living when we work. But honestly, Aria, if I had made that kind of dough when I was 23 or 24, and I was reared well. I have a brother and two sisters, and my parents, I think, did a good job too. But when you're in LA on your own, and all of a sudden you can buy whatever car you want, you can live wherever you want, you got a pile of cash in your back pocket, you go to a restaurant, people make a fuss over you,
Mhm.
you start to get away with stuff that you probably wouldn't have where you're not suddenly famous.
Mhm.
That can be really tough. Um, And you and I know people who have blown through 10 or $12 million by the time they're 30.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're going, wow, I, I didn't think I'd ever have to audition again. And now I'm lucky if I get a Jack in the Box commercial. And I really want that Jack in the Box commercial.
Yeah.
And I've had two marriages and I'm broke. And that happens a lot. So you have a different perspective. You, Robbie Rist, a lot of other people
Mhm.
who I've known who've grown up in the business. It's a different animal when you're a kid.
It is. Because it's also normal to you, but it's not normal to anybody else.
Hmm.
So the perspective is is really interesting. I felt like a normal person, and honestly, handling finances uh, is difficult for many people. I feel like that should be something we're taught.
Absolutely. It is not germane just to show business without question.
Yeah, it's something we should be taught in school. I keep coming up with this list of like, if I designed school, what would it be? There'd be a lot
Yeah,
more like
yeah.
psychological health, mental health,
Oh, yeah,
training.
and I have to say that I learned the skills, you know, uh, I understand why you have to learn the Pythagorean theorem and a little bit of um, geometry and other stuff and how to diagram a sentence and all that. But I got to tell you, the thing that helped me the most was learning to speak extemporaneously and properly. That is doing theater in high school, learning how to speak on stage, learning how to make a mistake on stage. And not just because I ended up being an actor, but the confidence of being able to speak um, appropriately, use the language appropriately, be confident in myself, and learn how to balance a checkbook. Those things really are what helped me. But I have to say, because I was taught well and I learned and I comprehended what I was learning, I know you now know, and I've known for years, it matters the way you present yourself. People do, for better, for worse, judge you on the way you comport yourself. And it's one thing to be colloquial, Aria, as you know, but it's another thing to really kind of dismantle the language because you don't know how to speak.
Mhm.
And and um, it is important, as they say, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And so you never had that problem because you were always well spoken, mom and dad. And to the extent you were working on set, great teachers. I remember my friend Linda Stone, a couple of other ones, really great studio teachers who knew how to walk that line with young actors in supporting them in their work and making sure that they kind of kept them in line because mom and dad weren't there. And sometimes a studio teacher is the only barrier between a young talent who's on a set for months at a time and people who are waiting outside, or people knowing that you're going to go to the same restaurant at night and start to make a big fuss over you. So you really do. You were very fortunate, uh, and you importantly embraced what your mom and dad taught you. Um, because it's paid off really well. And it's just a pleasure to see how well you've turned out.
Thank you. Wow, it's really fun to go back over some of,
Isn't it?
yeah, the history of how we even got here. I mean, like you said, that just how things, the miracle of life, and how we even meet, and how our paths cross, and why it's still such a mystery. But it's fun to unravel, and
It
it's fun
is.
to put the pieces together.
Well, you're so articulate, and you said that beautifully. It is fun to unravel. And one of the great gifts that old age has bestowed on me um, is precisely that. These opportunities, when you called, I just smiled immediately, um, because you're just a delightful young woman, and we do have a pretty significant history. The fact that it's been 10 or 15 years ago doesn't make it any less wonderful.
Mhm.
And I love, as much as I kind of look at my age and go, oh my God, well, I think, but wait a minute, it's the natural course of events. It beats the alternative.
Yeah.
So at least when you're getting older, you have these incredible experiences with people like Aria and Frank and the usual suspects, Charlie and Tress and Maurice and on D. Bradley Baker, you name it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, to go back and lift the pieces of the onion skin back and say, oh, we got remember this and remember working with that. We got to work with Michael York in One of the Land Before Times. Remember that?
Yes, and
Oh
Chris
my God.
Christopherson and
Yes.
Reba McEntire. I mean,
Oh my God. Look at the people we've gotten to work with in this crazy franchise. People that I grew up watching. I mean, the definitive film version of Romeo and Juliet has Michael York in it from 1968. And and that was my Romeo and Juliet. And when I walked in and Sue Blue said, oh, guess who's playing the lead dinosaur, the bad one? Michael York. And the same thing. We had so many people, and we were all thrilled about that. Like there was no pretense, no arrogance, no ego. And the movie stars who worked with us, in my recollection, were all really great, really nice people.
Yeah. Michael
Right?
Clark Duncan, he was great. I mean, like you said, it's funny because you knew these people, you knew their names. I was young enough to where I hadn't necessarily seen some of them, the first guy you mentioned,
Oh,
Kenneth Mars.
yeah.
I didn't see any of his
That's
stuff,
fine.
like, until later on. But then the producers, I mean,
Oh,
all of his work
oh,
with that crew, I mean, I came to admire. And then you look back and you become like reverse star-studded. I'm like, oh my gosh, I
totally.
had no
That's
idea.
that's exactly what it was. We go back and look at it and think, God, how lucky was I? I mean,
Mhm.
when I got to Hollywood, uh, the producers, Young Frankenstein, a couple of other TV things. Uh, Radio Days. Ken Mars was one of my very favorite character actors of all time.
Wow.
He was old enough to be my father, and I remember meeting him. I forgot. It might not have been A Land Before Time, but ultimately, of course, he was on there. But oh my God, I could not believe that I was working with the great Ken Mars. He was the voice of King Triton in The Little Mermaid as well.
Wow. Just
Just a
a
real deal.
tree. Once you start with one person and see all the work they've done, and then
Yeah,
it continues on. Uh,
right.
um, that's so cool. I was actually going to ask you because of how excited I was when I was little to work with you and others that I've met. When you first got into the business, like, was there? I mean, you've mentioned Ken Mars. Was there anybody in particular that you were like mind blown to have met starting out?
Yes. In fact, I came to LA in 1978, ostensibly to do live action. I'm a singer who became an actor. But when I moved here, relative to my age, I had a lot of experience. I was 22 when I moved here full time, but I'd been on the road for 3 years doing live theater and music, pretty much daily in a traveling theater group. So I had a relative large amount of experience for a 22-year-old. And when I started doing animation in the mid late 80s, I had spent the first 10 years of my life here doing what we kind of discussed. In my case, it was episodic television like Hill Street and St. Elsewhere and MacGyver and Amazing Stories and stuff like Love American Style, and a lot of on-camera commercials, Ford, Coke, Levi's,
Mhm.
you you name it. Probably 30 of them on camp, Jack in the Box, and then a pile of radio stuff. And then my agents called and said, "Hey, you got a call to audition for some cartoons. Have you ever thought about that?" I'm like, "Yeah," but the only reason I hadn't really pursued it was because there were a handful of people who did most of it when I first came here. This was before Disney Channel and DVDs and satellite television. Now, cartoons are utterly ubiquitous. You watch cartoons online, on TV, on your watch, anywhere, 24/7.
Yeah.
Um, and so my agents called and said, "Well, there's something called GI Joe." And I went and auditioned. I got the job and I loved it. Next week, I auditioned for something called Transformers and got a job. But the main thing that blew my mind was when I would see people like Ken Mars, Hamilton Camp, Marsha Wallace, Artie Johnson, Ruth Buzzy, people I grew up watching uh, on TV in the 70s who were working on these cartoon shows. And they were old enough to be my parents.
Mhm.
Jonathan Winters, Mel Blanc. Um, and the thing that was so cool was to see the fact that they were utterly unlimited by the way they looked. They were the age I am now. They were old men and women.
Yeah.
But the fact that they could do that voices didn't stop anything. Nerve. No, I can still be Carl until I punch my ticket forever and ever and ever. Same with Yakko, same with Raphael, same with Donatello. It's cool. They weren't limited by this. And as you know, although you're a beautiful girl and woman, when you're a youngster and not a celebrity, it's about your look. Could Aria be the big sister of the guy they hired to be the little brother?
Mhm.
Does she look like she could be in the family? We're not sure if she can act yet. It turns out she can, but you see my point.
Yeah.
Well, to not have that even come into the equation as a young unknown actor was fantastic. So now, as an older unknown actor, I'm a little more known because I've been around so long, but the characters are famous. I'm not really, and that's fine. I don't draw them and I don't write them. But a lot of people know Yakko, a lot of people know Pinky, a lot of people know Raphael and Donatello and Carl Weezer and Mighty Max and Biker Mice and Goof Troop and Gummy Bears and Dark Rain. They know all that stuff. So the characters have become really iconic, and I've had more than my share. But I'm still not limited by how I look. When I was young, it didn't matter. Now that I'm old, it doesn't matter. As long as I can perform and sing,
Mhm.
it's the greatest job in the world, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You really summed it up very well. And I'm lucky that my voice, I mean, it's changed a little bit, but I was one of the child actors who was able to keep going with that same role
Yeah.
as a kid until I don't know, the last one I was 25 or 26 when I did it. And
Well, and remember, it's kind of heartbreaking. The young fella who did Littlefoot, there were three little feet with us, or little foots.
oh, at least there was
Okay,
Thomas Decker. He was the longest running one that I,
he he was the first one, right?
mhm,
Okay, I remember when Thomas's voice changed,
mhm.
and the one before he was replaced, I think there were a couple of times when his voice kind of cracked a bit, and it was the writing was on the wall. It's like, oh, poor little foot. This guy's fixing to go to that big dinosaur graveyard in the sky because nature took its course.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen to you, and that there are just a handful of ladies. You, Katie Lee, um, Laura Jill Miller, uh, Tara can still do it, Tress, but there are a lot of women who were not able to capture the essence of a little girl character, so that they would end up doing little boy characters, because they could use their sensibilities to do that instead of just be an authentic, sweet little girl character. And
Mhm.
there are a handful of actresses who've been able to do that. You're one of them. And that's a pretty neat trick.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it comes naturally to me, and luckily it was my
Good.
own voice that I was trying to mimic. So I remember that time when I kind of felt like when I knew Thomas was going out that they were looking at me kind of sideways, like, is she gonna be able to last? And I was like, yes, I am.
You
I
and
will.
Andy McAfee and her brother, because he was Littlefoot for a while too,
He
right?
was Littlefoot in number 4, maybe 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many he did, but he
Right.
stopped at 5, and then she took over. And
And Andy was just spectacular. And what is really, I think, sometimes difficult is not every child actor who is a really adorable little boy or a really beautiful little girl. All of a sudden they grow up and their skill, hopefully gets better and better as they become brighter and smarter and able to understand how to perform and how to learn more about the whole experience and the craft of acting. But in Hollywood, when you're an on-camera talent and you start out as a beautiful little girl, and all of a sudden you grow up and your talent doesn't quite go with the way you look, and all of a sudden you're this, and you and Andy are two examples. Tara's another one, Tara Strong, who grew into your beauty and your talent went along with it. And I mean, it's got to be really hard because Hollywood is really tough on women. I have heard producers say, Um, yeah, she's just terrific, wonderful actor, but she's going to be 32. And when I hear that,
Oh,
oh my God, Aria.
I know. Coming from
And
somebody who is now 33.
right? And
Yeah.
women just start to come into the whole experience of being a, 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 a smart, grown, experienced, looking to do more woman when you're 30 or 40.
Yeah.
And so to have that limitation because of the way you look with and nothing to do with your chops is really tough. And it doesn't happen as much to men. Little boys, if they're cute, they can grow into somebody that looks a little bit different and make that transition easier because it's not right, but it's the way it goes for guys.
Mhm.
Billy Mooney worked like crazy when he was 4, 5, 6 years old, and he worked like crazy when he was 20 and 30 and 40.
Mhm.
And that doesn't happen all the time. So especially for women, it's
Mhm.
really cool to watch how it's gone for you and Andy.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating that you are aware
I am.
of that. Because even though it's not your experience, it's important to realize and learn from what other people go through,
It
and
is.
hopefully try and help the world be more fair on some
Yes,
level.
I take every opportunity. That's why I'm so grateful to speak with you. I take every opportunity I can. I'm not going to change it, but people do need to understand that this uh, incredible amount of pressure that is put on young girls by society to, to be like um, whatever the ideal is. Look,
Instagram
you're a, oh, honey,
model.
when I look at my son's grown, but I only have a son, one boy. Let me tell you, if all of a sudden I had two or three girls from say ages 7 to 12 with the stuff that pops up on your computer screen or what is purported to be the ideal and seeing girls at 14 having Botox or
Gosh, yeah.
you hear about
Extensions and all this stuff. Yeah.
honey
Modifications.
modification and I know that you know that better than I, but oh my God,
Mhm.
I didn't have to worry about my kid being online at 8 years old, seeing what, supposedly a real beautiful girl looks like today because of keeping up with the Kardashians or real housewives of Atlanta or the real restaurant owners of Beverly Hills. Oh, look at the 16-year-old girl who was just hired to work here. Oh, she's on her second boob job. What? Uh,
Yeah.
honey, forgive me, I say honey, I mean that, no, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but oh my God, Aria, I really, that in addition to just trying to hone your craft and get better, and then you have to worry about, like you said, they're looking at me sideways because I'm getting a little older.
Mm.
It makes me speechless. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't know how you and other young women. I'm glad that the tide is turning. It's turning very slowly, but people are starting to see. Wait a minute, Helen Mirren. She's 75 years old. My God, she's
Oh,
stunning.
she is. She's one of
In
my
addition to her
goals.
obvious Oscar-winning skills, Meryl Streep. They're stunningly beautiful.
Mhm.
I don't want them to start pumping themselves up full of stuff. What must a young girl, irrespective of being in show business, how about a little girl who's 13 or 14 and lives in Flint, Michigan, and wants to look like, that's what the cool girls look like in Calabasas. I don't know how parents deal with it.
I
It's brutal.
I totally feel you on that. I don't have kids of my own yet, but I've experienced that on many levels.
Oh,
Um, Even being a primarily voiceover, I mean, I've done TV and film too,
sure.
but it does trickle down. In the Hollywood industry, it reflects back to people what they feel like they should be somehow.
First, look, everybody wants to look nice.
Mhm.
I've got gray hair and a bunch of wrinkles, but Jesus, I'm 64 years old. That happens.
Yeah.
Um, however, I also understand that the pressure to look good, whatever that means, it's very subjective, um, is different for women. That's why it costs a fortune to buy world-class hydrating moisturizing cream. You know, all that stuff, the stuff that you guys go through
Mhm.
to, not everybody, but by and large, to make sure that you look as good as you feel. You don't have to worry about it because you're a naturally beautiful woman, but you see my point. And irrespective of whether you're in show business, on camera, voice work, everybody wants to look nice. I constantly look myself in the mirror and go, oh well. But it's part of the deal, man. I'm closer to the end than the beginning. I'm fine with that. It's just the way life works. But it's different for women.
Yeah.
And man, I I do love the opportunity to share that experience as a guy who grew up in this business. Because the women whom I've worked with for decades, who are my close friends, I think Tress McNeil is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And she's what, 70? I don't know. Lorraine Newman, same thing. They're
I,
gorgeous. And it's not just about their looks, but their chops, their countenance, the way they move through their lives. I just love them because they represent so much more than just the way they look.
mhm.
And they're also reaping the rewards of having incredible chops because they're working all the time,
Yeah.
you know? And so anyway, that's my little blast on ageism in Hollywood. But you're right, because of the nature of social media, everybody gets a little flipped out um, with the way we're supposed to look nowadays. You know, it's really difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good reminder. And it's very important for women to invest in your whole self,
Yes,
just, you know, the exterior, invest in your talent.
totally. Take a
And
tip. Take a tip from my dear sweet friend Aria. When you are blessed with a wonderful gift, but the biggest part of your gift is your effusiveness, your kindness. It's not. And by the way, folks, what you see from Aria on your side of the screen is not manufactured. Aria is a delightful, um, outgoing, kind, funny, talented woman. This isn't something she manufactures to be, to sell her show. She's like this all the time. And
I couldn't
that's
if I wanted to.
right. And me neither. That's the secret, is it really does come from the inside. You can tweak things, but you have a natural effervescence, and that's important. And I think people need to see that someone who's been in Hollywood from the time you were, what, 4 or 5 years old and working?
Yeah,
Yeah,
5. Yeah.
28 years. And that's the secret, is being able to not take it too seriously and to understand that the effervescence and the kindness that you see from someone, regardless of the business they're in, that's the secret. And Aria would be this way if she were a vet or if she were a school teacher, and that's what people need to know.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's one of the things. I mean, I could go on about you too, like in the same way. Your friendship has meant so much to me over the years, and just the fact that you've always been consistent, never felt dismissed by you, or like you looked down on me for being a kid or anything like that. And that means a lot. That actually brings me to a point about this whole industry that has always been so cool to me, is how much these voices can mean to people from all walks of
Oh,
life who are struggling with all kinds of things.
wow.
And to know that you're going into their home, into their, personal space, and meaning something to them. I bring that up because I came across this letter that you actually tweeted from
Oh,
this kid named Angel de Jesus Ocampo.
oh, bless his heart. Yeah, he is so sweet. Angel is autistic. And as you probably know, having met fans and stuff, what is so wonderful about the whole advent of Comic Cons and the ability to reach out and speak to fans and get to know them by Twitter, often people on the autism spectrum really relate to animated characters. And so when I'm fortunate enough to get a chance to know them a little bit, they open up with the most incredible stories, Aria,
I know.
of the extent to which these characters connect with them. So please go ahead. It's a remarkable thing that this young man did.
I'll read a portion of it if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Um, so he, of course, says hi and wishes you and your family well, and then he says, "I've watched so many of your cartoons like Animaniacs, Goof Troop, Pinky and the Brain, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2012, since I was 7 years old. Goof Troop I started watching during the pandemic. Your characters are my safe place when I'm having an anxiety attack or just hyper focusing. I live in Illinois and I have ADHD and anxiety and hydrocephalus as a result of a stroke being born 24 weeks premature. Your characters help me a lot with my ADHD and anxiety. I always watch those shows, especially Animaniacs and Goof Troop. Due to COVID 19, I haven't been able to go out with friends or even go to school as I'm more vulnerable. When you followed me on Twitter, I started shaking because I was in shock. My mom wanted to thank you for what you've done. I look up to you and Nancy and Jason for guidance and learned to become a voiceover actor, which I finally achieved thanks to you guys. I often get bullied for having disabilities, but you've made me not give up. You and your characters hold a special place in my heart. Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you for messaging me on Twitter. You made me feel like I was 7 years old again, talking to me as Yakko and PJ. Your book has helped me so much. My mom says you're a great guy. Over the years, I've had issues with depression and anxiety, which I still do to this day, but thanks to you, I can conquer those feelings. I always feel bad about messaging you, but you have time to see them and answer when you do have time. You're officially one of my friends, Rob. I'm almost 16 and I started my voice acting career. Thank you so much. So that is so cool.
Honey, well, clearly I was aptly cast as Yakko. I haven't shut up since you were kind enough to have me on your show, just starting, but I get a little bit tongue tied. But so, so humbled uh, and grateful that I am around and able to now understand the extent to which those characters are so important, Aria. Um, it really did change my perspective. I love my work. I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich is better. But what got me out here 42 years ago from Michigan in my little Honda with all my worldly possessions, with my mother on the front porch crying back in Michigan. Um, Typical story, was the love of performing. And I still have it. I have a Jones to do my gig, irrespective of whether I'm being paid or not.
Mhm.
I do it because I can't not do it. However, as a result of social media, nice friends like you allowing me to do this, and the ability to connect with young folks like Angel, um, who clearly is one, uh, I have learned that this work is way beyond a paycheck. It's way beyond an action figure or a rating point. Um, there are people whom I've met over the years who will say similar things, much older than Angel, and say, I know, Mr. Paulsen, I've been waiting in line and I hear other people and they get so excited when they hear Pinky or Raphael or Spike. Um, but, and they say, oh my God, you're the voice of my childhood. Well, there are a lot of us who have been lucky enough to do that actor wise. But in my case, Mr. Paulsen, but for Ninja Turtles or Animaniacs, my childhood would have been an absolute nightmare. And then I'll find out that this young man, young man, he's maybe 40 now, but he's driven 2 states away with his wife and 2 kids, all in their Ninja Turtle shirts, bought a ticket to Chicago Comic Con, got in a hotel room, stood in line for an hour so they could talk to some knucklehead from Hollywood about what Ninja Turtles meant to them. Because this man tells me that, and this happens often. This is not singular. Um, Mr. Paulsen, I was in the foster system from the time I was 6 months old till I was 18, and I could be on my own. And I had to go to 4 different homes, and it was difficult each time because every one of the families who took me in were great. Uh, but as you can imagine, leaving and going to another school or another family was really hard. But as long as there was a television, Raphael and Donatello and Michelangelo and Leonardo were there to help me move on. And I was able to bond with my new siblings or my new family or my new schoolmates over cartoons. So now I'm here with my children and my wife, to whom I've been married for 12 years. And we're all dressed in Ninja Turtle stuff because you will never, ever know what that show means to me. Jesus, Aria,
You
how on,
handled
what? How on earth can I quantify that compliment? And it happens all the time. Uh,
Yeah.
and I know it happens to you. It happens to Tress. It happens to Nancy Cartwright, all of us. I can't get enough of it. And so to know that there are a lot of folks who not only get a huge amount of joy and share this with their families, but there are people who will say, I already thought about checking out, but I watched Land Before Time, or I watched Animaniacs, or, there was something about Batman that really got me. Are you kidding me? I, and it's not hyperbole, and it's not unusual.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have that experience now. It has really given me a completely new and wonderful outlook on the importance of my work. I just can't get enough of it.
Wow. I
How
had
about
no
that?
idea I was going to get so emotional. Like the whole time we were talking, I'm just like,
My God, you should see me. Maurice and I have had a number of times where we go out to have dinner after, when we're at a convention somewhere, and we get a little bit tweaked and going, oh my God, could you
yeah.
believe what that young ex-Marine said about how, he had Pinky and the Brain DVDs for his 2 tours in Iraq?
Oh my
We, we,
gosh.
we hear that stuff.
Wow. I,
Mind blowing. So now when I hear people who come up to me at 35, 40, 45 years old say, oh, well, sorry, Mr. Paulson, I'm 41 and I still like cartoons. I'm 64 and I make them. Frank Welker's 74. Alan Oppenheimer's 90. You
wow.
know, uh, Steven Spielberg, who produces Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, he's 73. We're not going to stop.
Oh yeah.
This is timeless, utterly timeless. Aria, as you know as well as anybody who's watching this, joy, kindness, uh, courage, empathy, like love, come from the most unexpected places. And it turns out they can come from animated characters too. I'm grateful to be part of it.
Absolutely. It is, cartoons are for everyone now. And I think that's one of the best things that has changed, that has shifted
Yes.
over the last couple decades, is that
Yes.
adults are realizing that we don't have to give up our childhood just because we've
Hell
hit a
no.
certain number. Like we can enjoy what we enjoy forever. Why not?
100%. You have, and I hope you have children one day because you'd be a phenomenal mother. You have such a unique perspective because you're a professional actor and you've had success, and you would be able to do what I've gotten to do with my kid, which is watch shows on which I worked and see how he goes, that's my dad is Raphael. Wow, this is really cool. I would love for you to have that experience of being able to share that with your babies and say, that's mommy is the talking dinosaur. So great. We have such a cool opportunity because of what we do
Mhm.
to share it with kids. And now my son is in the video game business, and the
Cool.
people he's grown up being around are the same folks you did. And
Yeah.
it's pretty cool for him to go, oh yeah, Mark Hamill's a friend of mine. He's the freaking Joker, right? So yeah, I hope you get to do that because you'll be the coolest mom. And yeah, so it's pretty neat. We're really lucky, but we're luckiest because we get to look at things like Angel's sweet letter. And while he's very complimentary, as are you, the hook is the characters, not Rob. It's not false modesty. I, I am a nice guy. I want to be a better one, and we can always get better as long as we live. We don't have to stop learning how to be better citizens, better humans. And so while it's not unusual that a young man or woman would send me that, you're a hero, or I admire you. I appreciate that always, but I understand the context in which it's given to me. It's the characters that are what light this up. I don't draw them, I don't write them, and it doesn't matter. It's about the characters. Fortunately, I have the kind of ego that can say, whether or not you ask for my autograph and you include me in the uh, discussion or spell my name right, doesn't matter. I have a significant part in the creation of that character. And even if the young man were to write an anonymous letter to whom it may concern, your voice, Mr. Whomever, I got to tell you what this means to me. That would be just as powerful, uh, because I now am able to see what happens as a result of that. And same things happen with Land Before Time. You know how many millions of people love that show. Or love those shows. It's impossible to quantify what that means to people.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'm still discovering just how much it
Oh,
means to people. I watched this whole video. This girl reviewed all 14 films that she watched during quarantine. And I found out there's a website called gang of5.net, which people create all their own worlds. That's the cool thing
how
too, is it's a
about that?
jumping off point for
Isn't
people to,
that great?
yeah.
I mean, we've gotten to be friends with each other and other people, and I got to watch you grow up, and we all got paid, and it turns out that we've had a profound impact on the creativity and the joy of millions of people just with this franchise, Aria.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
it's crazy how fortunate we are. But what's really the best part of it is that we get it. We know how lucky we are. And so now here you are reaching out to your fan base, and I have the singular privilege of being your first guest, but uh, it will do nothing but inspire more people to do what you did, to say, I think it's time for me to try something else.
Yeah.
And here's my here's my hook. I'm, Miss Land Before Time and other things, and you're going to learn a lot about me. But the joy of creating never stops. And now I'm a young woman, and I'm going to see what the next chapter is. Rob is an old man. Let's see what his next chapter is. Dick Van Dyke is 95. He could be my dad.
I,
You know, every other week I see him at a Starbucks singing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. That's what I'm headed for. I'm in, baby. Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain are back on Hulu, and they're huge again. And Steven Spielberg made sure that it was Tress, Jess, Mo, and me. No celebrities. It's the authenticity of the character that counts. And now the fans who weren't even born 25 years ago when we did the first batch are loving the show on a platform that was not even available or not even thought of when we did the first batch. Crazy times, and I'm so grateful.
seriously, I haven't actually gotten to watch the new series yet,
Oh,
so
no problem. When you
I'm
do,
looking forward to
it's
that.
pretty good. Yeah.
How many see? How long is it? How many
We have
episodes?
13 episodes now. We have season two, season one dropped in November. Season two will probably drop in the summer of this year. Um, but all of the first 100 episodes of Animaniacs and the first 100 of Pinky and the Brain are also on Hulu. So you can watch your favorite episode of Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain from 20 odd years ago, and then boop, watch the brand new episode, 13 brand new episodes of shows that were just recorded a year and a half ago with Tress and Jess and Rob and Maurice, Yakko, Wacko, and Dot in the water tower singing these great songs. Hello, nurse, and eat that brain, nerve. And people love it. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Seriously. Now, I know you talked about that voice coming. Oh no, it wasn't Peter Sellers. You credit him with one of them.
Peter was a terrific actor, but is still one of my all-time top 5 influences to this day, a buddy of mine, a wonderful actor who is entirely too handsome. I hate him for that, but I love him because he's like a brother. Carrie Elways.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I know. My wife's the same way. When Carrie calls, my wife is like, "Oh, hi, Carrie. Oh, he's here somewhere. Hi." Um, but when Carrie sent me a video of a great scene of Peter Sellers, it just reminded me of his genius 3 days ago. And I've watched it 10 times. I'd seen it 100 times before, but Peter is always one of my heroes. Yeah.
Wow. My mind is in 1,000 places right now because as soon as you said Carrie Ellis, I was like, I had texted a friend after asking you, and I was like, I'd love to get Carrie Elwes on my show, but I have no connection to him. Well,
Well,
now,
I'll let him know. He is the greatest. And the only thing that's better than how gorgeous he is he's got the biggest, kindest heart. He's a terrific actor, and everybody knows him from Princess Bride and The Crush and all that, and Saw, you know. But and of course, he did a season on Stranger Things. But God Almighty, is he a great guy? Just a really nice guy. And like I said, I hate him because he's just entirely too handsome. But the way it goes.
some people just want to.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh my gosh. I had so many questions in mind for this whole thing, and we've gone in so many directions, which I love. I love it's very organic, and it's just
Yeah,
fun to catch up. But now I'm like,
it is. What I would like to do is reserve the right to come back. And if you want, I mean, you can make this a singular episode on its own, or if you want, I can come back and finish it, or we can do a part two or whatever you want.
I really appreciate your flexibility and like being willing to come back
Oh,
because I know that as soon as this conversation ends, I'm going to have like 50 other things that I wish I had gotten to. Maybe I'll just throw out a couple questions and see
sure, let's
what
do.
happens. As you know, as I'm sure you've gotten asked a million times over, is how to get into the business, how
Yeah,
to become a voiceover actor. I've heard some of your responses, which are that being in the actor part is is primary.
yeah.
Like, where do you suggest often that people start when they want to explore what their capabilities are?
Well, if they're little kids, what I did was probably what you did. I just played. Um, I never expected to make a living at it. I just love performing, creating, singing, singing in character. Um, I think it's important for people to know that I did not start out with an eye on being an animation voice actor guy. I just wanted to work. I thought of myself more as an entertainer as opposed to a serious actor. I love to sing. I became proficient at singing and reading music. I learned to read music in high school. It was important to me. Turned out to be a great idea because I learned since I can read music, I got hired for a lot of stuff because I could sing, sing in character, and read music. Boom. That was something that I didn't know would serve me so well, but I did it because it was fun.
Mhm.
So I encourage people, if you love to dance, dance, learn. That might lead to speaking roles on stage, um, learning improv, learning how to think on your feet.
Mm.
Uh, a lot of people who do what we do are really sharp. I mean, they come up with a response, usually a comedic one, boom, right away. And the number of times that you and I have worked together in which we've had to stop while everybody's catching their breath from laughing so hard, we got to kind of get back on track. Those, while not conducive to getting the job done quickly, are often encouraged by directors because it fires up the creativity in the room, you
Mhm.
know? So improv is great. Um, so when you're a kid, just play. When you graduate a little bit and you start getting opportunities to audition for plays in high school or singing at church or your temple or whatever, do that. It gives you more of an opportunity to perform in front of people, to deal with the nerves that are normal,
Mhm.
to screw up and drop a line in the middle of a play and find out that it's not the end of the world. It's not, you think you're going to die and you get all tingly and your face gets flushed but it's not the end of the world.
You get through it.
Um,
Yeah.
and you don't have as much to lose. There's no money involved. You're not doing it to pay your mortgage. You're not doing it to make a car payment. So like me, when I came to LA at 22, I knew what I was in for. I knew that I might audition for 100 things before I even got a call back. And I didn't take it personally. Did it make me sad when I got right down to the bitter end and had 5 callbacks for a network at NBC and they gave it to someone else? Of course. But I got over it because I could mollify myself by saying, hey man, nobody shoved the gun in your mouth to be here. You're doing what you want to do. This is your dream. You're in LA, you're in Hollywood. So you didn't get the job, but you get to go back for the next one.
Yeah.
Would you be anywhere else if you could choose? No. So this is where I want to be. So suck it up and go back to class. Don't stop going to class. I still work on stuff every day. I work every day on something just because I want to hone my skills every day. That's me. And now with the advent of social media and YouTube, something that's free, you can record something with your friend, or say you're a fan of Aria's and you're a wonderful animator and you live in Sweden, and you get together and she's created a character and you can animate it, and you got a friend in Argentina who's a great writer, and you can collaborate, and then you can put it on YouTube for free. And you might have 100,000 people in a week who watch it. So you can test it out. None of that was available when I came here.
Yeah.
So
Incredible.
that's what I tell people to do. It's about playing. Don't worry about the money. As I said, I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich is better. But I promise you, it's not about the money. It's about the joy of creating. That's what I say. And so do it.
Thank you for meeting with me today.
A total pleasure and privilege. I love you. You are so precious. And please give my best to your mom and tell her we'll do this again when we can figure out the technical aspects of it. But you look and sound great. You're doing a great job.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican.
Later.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay healthy.